Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Before we recite the Dua al-Nasiri, just a quick reminder of the reality of supplication, which is expressed in a very beautiful narration from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he was riding, and riding behind him was the son of his uncle, Abdullah ibn Abbas. And out of respect for the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, the cousins of the Prophet are not referred to as his cousins. And there's a word for cousin in Arabic, but it's not used when you refer to the cousins of the Prophet ﷺ, because a cousin is someone who's an equal to another. They're at the same level, so to speak. So they refer to him as Ibnu Ammi Rasulillah, the son of the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, out of respect. And Abdullah ibn Abbas was around 10, maybe 11 at the time of this incident. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, addressed him, Ya Ghulam, O young boy, Inni u'allimuka kalimat, I will teach you some words. So pay attention. He said, Ihfadillah yahfadk, be mindful of God, and God will be mindful of you. Ihfadillah tajidhu tujahak, remain mindful of God, and you will find Him before you. And this is one of the very encompassing hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ, and we'll look at its continuation. But the Prophet ﷺ did not dumb things down for children, but he had raised them up. He had raised them up so that they were fit for high meanings, for real purpose in life. Normally you wouldn't say things like that in our time to a 10-year-old child. But Abdullah ibn Abbas was ready for these meanings. And some of the deepest teachings of the Prophet ﷺ were given to the children of the companions in person. And that's part of the prophetic guidance, that he taught people in general, but he also gave people particular guidance and counsel. And of course they sought it out. So he says, be mindful of God, and God will be mindful of you. Remain mindful of God, and you'll find Him before you. So when you turn to God, you find facilitation and assistance. But that is not the true purpose. What you seek is beyond that. Remain mindful of God. In what? In all the choices of life. Right? In all the choices of life. And that's when mindfulness and consciousness of God is tested. And you will find Him before you. تَجِدْهُ تُجَاهَكَ. In another nation, تَجِدْهُ أَمَامَكَ. You'll find Him in front of you. You will find consciousness of God. And this is true of supplication as well. One of the ways of being mindful of God is to turn to Allah before one's actions, asking Allah for assistance. But the purpose of that is not the assistance itself. It's the one whose assistance you're seeking. Then the prophetic counsel continues, إِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهِ. If you ask God. وَإِذَا اسْتَعَنْتَ فَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ. And if you seek, and if you rely upon God. If you ask Allah. There's some things you only ask from Allah. and the means taken in them is the asking, and that's supplication. Supplication. But even when we ask creation, whether asking by the tongue of request or through one's actions, you go for a job interview, you're asking for a job. You didn't say, give me a job, but you play out what that would entail. Right? One sees all the means that one takes as just that. They're the means. But one's asking with one's state is from Allah Himself. And one of the ways to facilitate and nurture that in one's life and reality is to make it a habit before one asks from creation to ask the Creator for everything. So you're going to ask someone, could you make me a cup of tea? You're going to ask someone that, could I meet with you regarding something or the other? Whatever the need is, whether you actually ask creation or you take the means of seeking from them, make it a habit of asking Allah before that. And then in the matters that we pursue in life, we rely on things. We rely on our alarm clock to get up. We rely on our cars to get us to our destinations. We rely on our computers to type things we want to type. We rely or become dependent upon our digital devices for noble and vain pursuits. All these different ways of reliance, we have to consciously teach ourselves to turn to Allah before them. And one of the practical ways of doing that is through supplication. Before you eat, we depend on food to live. We don't depend on anything to live. We are alive by the grace of God. Right? And there's an adab, there's a propriety with the divine, which is we take the means. We take the means. But neither do we deny the means, nor do we depend upon them. But one of the ways of breaking that delusion of being a dependent being, that we depend on creation, right, is to ask the one we truly depend on with one's state, to pause before anything that one does and to feel one's neediness for Allah. But to ask from Him before the taking of means, before the relying on the means. If you ask Allah. That does not negate asking with one's tongue from others, nor of taking the means of seeking from them. And there are things that we depend upon in this life, but that dependence should just be as a means, not to feel oneself attached to those means, because it's very possible that Allah take away those matters. And if one does this, one will find contentment, one will find gratitude, and one will find divine assistance in whatever one pursues. And this is one of the sources of spiritual strength for the believer. So it is in that light that we pursue all matters, both the mundane, but also the spiritual, because the true asking is with one's heart and with one's state. So this particular supplication, the Dua al-Nasiri, was compiled in North Africa in a time that the lands there were in great turmoil. They were they'd become one of the playgrounds of the various European colonial powers, and the response to that spiritually was to turn to God, asking for assistance. This is a very powerful supplication. In some areas in North Africa, the French actually banned this supplication. It's just a little too disconcerting. But it's a very powerful supplication. It contains some very high and noble meanings that are worth reflecting upon oneself as well. And one of the benefits of supplications like this is that it also teaches us, how do you ask? gaunt. And what do you ask? So let's recite this in one voice.
يا من إلى رحمته المفر ومن إليه يلجأ المضطر ويا قريب العفو يا مولاه ويا مغيث كل من دعاه بك استغثنا يا مغيث الضعفاء فحسبنا يا ربي أنت وكفى فلا أجل من عظيم قدرتك ولا أعز من عزيز سطوتك لعز ملكك الملوك تخضع تخفض قدر من تشاء وترفع والأمر كله إليك رده وبيديك حله وعقله وقد رفعنا أمرنا إليك وقد شكونا ضعفنا عليك